The essay I chose to analyze was Where is My Buffalo Robe by Crystal Samagani. Samagani and others like her who have suffered through the hardships of being an Indigenous Canadian are going through the aftermath of an oppressive and discriminatory history. Whether it be from events stemming off the government-initiated assimilation policy or the aftermath of these atrocities, Indigenous people are left to reclaim their identity from ruins. Current issues such as cultural appropriation and race shifting, which is people who are proclaiming an Indigenous identity that isn't theirs, are further tainting the sacred Indigenous culture that so many are working hard to reestablish. Samagani is an activist on Indigenous issues, and to the right of the slide is a picture of her protesting in front of the Parliament building. This is a cause and effect essay. The cause is the current issues of Indigenous identity theft and cultural appropriation. Samagani is especially passionate about this issue because she expresses how her Indigenous identity has already been tampered with by past government policies, and as she puts it, she is left to forge her Indigenous self from scraps left by politicians, capitalism, and exploitation. People proclaiming an Indigenous identity that isn't theirs are stealing something so sacred and effectively dwindling the culture for others. They are trivializing history and watering down profound beliefs. For people seeking to reclaim their identity, this makes it especially difficult because so much uncertainty is created, and it is so easy to be deceived by those in stolen buffalo robes. The buffalo robe she refers to in her essay often conveys a deeper meaning. It is a symbol. Samagani states, "The buffalo robe I speak of is my Indigenous identity, Plains Cree, and my buffalo robe is my identity." The author was part of the 60s scoop where the government displaced children from their homes and took them to non-Indigenous homes to be assimilated. Her identity was stripped against her will at a young age, and she says that decades later, that loss echoes in all that I am and do. This is when her buffalo robe was taken. Residential schools in the 60s scoop are only two of the events targeted to steal buffalo robes. By posing in a buffalo robe, the author refers to race shifting and cultural appropriation that strips the identity of Indigenous people by romanticizing and exploiting their culture. An actual buffalo robe is made from the skin of a North American bison and can be used as a cloak, rug, or blanket. Traditionally, after men accomplished deeds during the war, such as killing enemies or becoming injured, they would depict them on their buffalo robe using paint. These buffalo robes held so much meaning and so many stories. While not explicitly said by Samagani, this could be the reason she used this as her symbol. Her use of symbolism was effective in explaining and tying together many concepts. They all related back to the buffalo robe in some way. Seemingly, the ambiguity of this symbol would make these concepts difficult to understand. However, this is not the case. She is giving deeper meaning to a tangible object, which especially may help a visual learner have more clarity in what she is saying. Throughout the essay, Samagani also makes use of rhetorical questions. The first time she asks a rhetorical question is when she says, "I find myself sitting wondering, where is my buffalo robe?" This question introduces the buffalo robe for the first time, so the reader does not yet know what it means. Not only does this entice the reader because it is a question, but because it will be taken literally and not for its metaphorical meaning. This may leave the reader confused at first, but the symbolic meaning is introduced quickly after, so overall this is an effective device for her to use. Other instances where she uses a rhetorical question is when she states, "How can such a precious, sacred thing be taken from us now?" And, "Were they who they said they were?" Her use of rhetorical questions doesn't directly help support her thesis, but they do help catch the reader's attention, which is important. Samagani uses multiple anecdotes throughout her essay. This strategy is effective because it gives the essay more personality and interest while simultaneously making it feel conversational. One example of an anecdote she uses is, "I was a part of the 60s scoop." For those of you unfamiliar with that term, it refers to the tens of thousands of Indigenous children apprehended by the government to be assimilated and raised in non-Indigenous homes. In my case, the AIM, Adopt Indian and Métis program of Saskatchewan from the 1960s and 1970s placed me permanently in a white family in small town Saskatchewan. She identifies that she is Indigenous, a 60s scoop survivor, and later reveals that she is an activist on Indigenous issues. She is coming from a place of experience and authority. This lets the critical reader know that she has knowledge on and commitment to the topic, establishing her ethos. There is also an appeal to emotion in this essay. In the lines, "I search for my buffalo robe, I feel exploited. To have a settler reap such vast rewards wearing a buffalo robe that was meant for others. That's a hurt felt by so many." And, "If you're going to pose in that buffalo robe, well then, pick up that glass of murky brown water deemed undrinkable that so many indigenous people live with every day, too. Join us in the search for the missing. Lament the loss of land, language, wild things, the trauma, the displacement, the crumbling abandoned schools. Take it all in, and not just the pretty stuff." This evokes in me that she is on her knees pleading for these people to understand the hurt they are causing an entire culture by watering down their beliefs and only bringing the glamorous aspects to light. Samagani is trying to reach an audience of people who these messages pertain to, and wants to make them feel aware, conscientious, and apologetic. The way she has written this article to give rise to all this emotion will hopefully encourage change in the identities that these people are misrepresenting, returning the power to the deserving hands. Samagani is clearly frustrated when she notices Indigenous cultural appropriation and identity theft, rightfully so. In the way that she writes, it stirs something ancient in me, and tears at the core of me. You can tell she is genuinely angry about the situation. In addition, this essay is informal due to the use of personal pronouns. The way that she inserts herself into the writing seems very thought out, and it just floods in passion. For example, when she speaks about her experience of the 60s scoop, she states, "Now, 5 decades later, that loss echoes in all that I am and do." And when she describes her buffalo robe, she says, "My buffalo robe is my identity. It is my jingle dress on the powwow trail. When I dance, the spirits move me, and I dance without tiring, without shame, and with great pride." In conclusion, I thought her message was very important. She was able to convey boundaries in a very graceful way, which will hopefully act as guardrails to protect Indigenous people.